The lock clicked. It wasn't loud, but in the silence of that night, our wedding night, it sounded like a gunshot. I stood outside the bedroom door in my own apartment, still half in my tuxedo, staring at the brass knob that now separated me from my wife. My wife of 7 hours. My heart was pounding, not from excitement or nerves, but from something much colder. Something that clawed slowly up my spine, whispering, "This isn't right." "Claire." I knocked gently, trying to keep my voice calm. "You okay?" There was a pause. Then her voice, muffled and unreadable, floated through the wood. "I'm tired, Daniel. Let's talk in the morning." Talk? In the morning? I was still holding the champagne glass as we never got around to clinking. The room smelled like roses, my shirt still had cake frosting on the cuff, and my wife had just locked herself behind a door on our honeymoon night. I waited for a moment. Maybe she was joking. Claire had a sharp sense of humor, always dancing on the edge of cruel, but I chalked it up to charm. Intelligence. Wit. But the lock stayed firm. I slept on the couch that night. At first, I thought maybe she was overwhelmed. Some brides are. It's a big day, and Claire wasn't the warmest person to begin with. She had always kept a little distance, a touch of mystery. I had thought it made her elegant, untouchable. Now, that mystery was starting to rot at the edges. Night 2. Same thing. Night 3, she said 5 words that hit me like a car crash at full speed. My body. My rules. Understand? She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her tone was flat, as narrowed with something between boredom and disdain. I laughed. I thought she was joking again, but she wasn't. She crossed her arms and tilted her head slightly, daring me to argue. "I'm your husband," I said, already feeling pathetic. "You're my legal husband," she answered. "Doesn't mean you own me." That phrase rang in my head for days. Legal husband. Not my love, not my man, not even partner. Just a man on a piece of paper. A name on a license. I had barely touched her hand since we said, "I do," and even then, it felt like she had winced when I slipped the ring on. The first week passed, and she started sleeping with headphones in. I'd wake up to the faint beat of music behind the door while I lay alone on the stiff living room couch. Her phone was always face down. Always locked. She didn't eat breakfast with me anymore. Didn't ask how my day was. She'd stay out late, seeing her friend Olivia, or working on her graduate applications. And when she came home, I'd catch whiffs of men's cologne on her coat. She said it was from Uber drivers. But one night, I couldn't take it anymore. It was day 15, half a month into a marriage that felt more like a hostage situation. I knocked again. Harder this time. "What?" she snapped. "We need to talk." "I'm busy." "Claire." Opened the door. Nothing. Then, "Daniel. My body. My rules." She spat it this time. Like a weapon. And something cracked inside me. Not in anger. Not yet. But in the way glass starts to web when pressure builds too long behind the surface. I stepped back, staring at the door like it might catch fire if I waited long enough. That was when I noticed it. Her laptop was on the hallway table. Open. Still glowing. Claire never left it unattended. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But you can only live in confusion and rejection for so long before curiosity turns into survival. I stepped forward, just intending to check if it had gone to sleep. But the screen was awake. So was the chat window. A man's name I didn't recognize was at the top, Mason R. The message just sent, not even a minute ago. "I told you to be more subtle. He's not stupid." Below that, 30 days. No touching. Like you promised. And then, after that, "You're mine again." My vision blurred. My hands went numb. I stared at those words until they burned into the inside of my skull. No touching. Like you promised. What the hell was this? A test? A game? My wife hadn't just locked me out. She had locked me out of her life. She was performing some twisted script, and I wasn't even supposed to be part of the audience. I closed the laptop. Quietly. Almost respectfully. Like it was a sacred document that had just revealed something divine and horrifying. The couch didn't feel as cold that night, because something inside me had gone colder. I couldn't sleep that night. The ceiling above me might as well have been a screen replaying those messages again and again, every word etching itself deeper into my skull. 30 days. No touching. Like you promised. My wife, my bride of 2 weeks, had entered into some agreement with another man to deny me any form of affection while I lived under the same roof, breathing the same air, pretending we were something real. And for what? Some kind of sick loyalty test to him? The next morning, Claire came out of the bedroom dressed in one of those silky robes she only used for photos, never for me. Hair perfect, skin glowing, like nothing had happened. She poured herself coffee without a glance in my direction. I watched her, waiting for a hint of guilt, for the twitch in her eye that would tell me she knew I'd seen the laptop. There was nothing, just that polished, untouchable smirk. "So," I said, keeping my voice even, "how's Olivia?" She froze for half a second, half a beat too long. "She's good. Still with that guy from Seattle." I nodded. "That the same guy who smells like Tom Ford?" She turned, raising an eyebrow. "You sniffing Uber drivers now, Daniel?" There it was again, control. She always found a way to flip the moment, steer it away from the edge. But not this time. I didn't say anything else. I just stared at her, letting the silence press against her carefully painted face. She broke first. A scoff. "God, you're starting to sound clingy. You know that, right?" "I'm starting to sound married," I replied. She laughed, loud and sharp, walking past me to grab her keys from the counter. "You're sounding like a man who's way too emotional for someone who hasn't earned anything yet." She left the apartment with that line hanging in the air like poison. Hasn't earned anything yet. What the hell did that mean? I paid for the wedding. I put the down payment on the apartment. I stood beside her in front of 100 witnesses and promised my life. And somehow, that counted for nothing? That afternoon, I called in sick to work. Not because I was physically ill, but because every time I tried to focus, all I could see were those texts. All I could hear was her voice behind that door. Cold, rehearsed, distant. I dug deeper. I knew her passwords. She'd once boasted about how trusting she was, how transparent. That had to be the most ironic thing she ever said to me. I checked her email first. Nothing obviously incriminating, but then I noticed an alias account, some throwaway Gmail she used to send herself documents. Except it wasn't just documents. It was photos. I opened one. It was her, Claire, on a hotel bed I didn't recognize, wearing lingerie I'd never seen, taking a selfie, smiling, but not for me. A second photo followed, then a third, and then a video clip. I didn't watch it. Not yet. I stared at the file name. Just a date that lined up perfectly with our engagement dinner. She told me she had a migraine that night and left early. I had gone home thinking she was asleep in her apartment, and instead, she'd been there. I closed the folder and backed away from the desk. My breathing was shallow, ragged. The world around me had shifted from color to grayscale. I wasn't a husband. I was a goddamn placeholder. That night, I didn't speak to her. She came home late again. I didn't ask where she'd been. I didn't ask about Olivia or grad school. I just watched her float through the apartment like nothing mattered. Like I wasn't even there. And she loved it. She thrived on that silence. It made her feel powerful, like she had broken me. But I wasn't broken. Not yet. I was planning. And when I got the next piece of the puzzle, I would set the match. Not today. Not tomorrow. But I'd burn her damn house of lies to the ground. The next morning, I sat at the dining table like a man waiting for court. I didn't touch my coffee. I didn't check my phone. I just watched the second hand on the wall clock twitch its way around while my wife hummed to herself in the bathroom, curling her hair like it was any other day. That same robe. That same goddamn smirk in her tone even when she wasn't talking. She came out 20 minutes later, dressed too nicely for class, tight jeans, silk blouse, heels she didn't wear unless she wanted eyes on her. She caught me staring and didn't flinch. "What?" she said, slipping her phone into her bag. I stood. Calm. Too calm. "Let's talk." Her lips pressed together. She made a show of looking at her watch. "I don't have time for a therapy session, Daniel. I've got things to do." I nodded. "Like Mason?" Her head snapped. There. That second. That flinch she couldn't hide fast enough. But then nothing. Her face hardened like stone. She stepped closer, slowly, as if walking toward a cornered dog. "What did you say?" "I saw your laptop. The messages. The 30-day deal. The rules." Her eyes narrowed, but her voice stayed soft. Too soft. You went through my personal stuff? You made our marriage personal, Claire. You locked me out. Literally. On the first night. She tilted her head, mock sympathy dripping from her. Her baby. Didn't get what he thought he bought? There it was. The mask slid halfway off. I saw the real her in that moment. Not the woman I proposed to. Not the laughing fiancé I thought I knew. But the venom beneath the sugar. She was daring me to react. To explode. To show weakness. I didn't. I leaned forward. I'm not mad you weren't ready. I'm not even mad you didn't tell me. But making a deal with another man about what you'll do with your husband, that's not hesitation. That's sabotage. She rolled her eyes. Jesus, Daniel, grow the hell up. You think you're the victim here because I don't want to jump into bed with someone who couldn't even handle my opinions during wedding planning? That twisted my stomach. You mean when you screamed at my mother for suggesting we not serve oysters at the reception? She was being controlling. And you weren't. I said. You cut my sister from the guest list because she wore white to your bridal shower. Claire stepped back. The smile was gone now. Her tone dropped. You're just mad you didn't get to consume the product on night one. Men like you. Don't say it, I warned. But she didn't stop. You think a ring and a few tears mean I owe you something. I never promised you anything, Daniel. Not my body. Not my time. Not my heart. And yet she had promised. In front of an altar. In front of God. But maybe, to her, that was all part of the game. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam the table. I just said, you're right. You don't owe me anything. But you took everything. My trust. My money. My time. And you spit on it. She stepped closer again. What are you gonna do, Daniel? Huh? Leave? You think you'll get sympathy? You think anyone's gonna feel bad for the guy who couldn't handle a strong woman? You've got no proof. No messages. No screenshots. You have nothing. That's when I smiled. Because I did have something. Not just the laptop. Not just the chat logs she stupidly left open. But the camera. She didn't know about the motion-triggered camera in the hallway. The one I'd installed after a break-and-scare 6 months ago. The one that just so happened to record her cozy little hallway phone calls at 2 a.m. The one that captured her whispering his name, giggling, saying things like, I'm counting down the days. He's getting suspicious. I didn't tell her that yet. Not because I was scared, because I wasn't ready to end it. Not yet. Claire liked power. And now, for the first time, I had it. So I stepped back and let her leave for class, kissing the air like a bored socialite, heels clicking out the door. As it shut behind her, I turned toward my computer. I opened the video folder. And this time, I pressed play. The video started with a burst of static before settling into color. There she was, Claire, outside a hotel room I didn't recognize, wearing a red coat I'd never seen. It was 2:15 in the morning. The hallway light above her flickered once, then steadied. She paced for a moment, holding her phone to her ear, then paused when the door opened. A man stepped out, tall, confident, dressed like he didn't give a damn. He didn't say anything. He just smiled. That lazy, smug kind of smile men wear when they know they've already won. Claire didn't hesitate. She walked right into his arms like they were rehearsing the final scene of a romantic film. Her face lit up with something I hadn't seen since before the wedding, pure excitement. Not nervous, not cold, just alive. She leaned into him and whispered something in his ear. The hallway mic didn't catch it, but her mouth was clear. 12 more nights. He kissed her forehead. Then they disappeared into the room, and the door closed behind them. I watched the entire clip 3 times. Not because I needed more proof, but because I was trying to wrap my head around what I'd become. The husband. The fool. The placeholder she curled up next to in wedding photos while this was already underway. And yet here I was, still trying to make sense of it all, like some part of me believed there had to be more. A reason. An explanation that didn't end with me being humiliated like this. But there was no misunderstanding the look in her eyes when she hugged him. That wasn't confusion. That wasn't guilt. That was possession. And worse, that was love. The next morning, I didn't speak a word to her. I went about my day like everything was normal. I made eggs. I watered the plants. I even kissed her cheek when she passed me in the hallway. She flinched, like the touch of my lips was some disgusting act she hadn't prepared for. She laughed nervously. You're being sweet. That's weird. Weird. I smiled, sipping my coffee. Guess I'm just in a good mood today. She gave me a strange look, like she couldn't tell if I was losing my mind or planning something. I made sure she couldn't. That afternoon, I called my cousin Nate. He's a tech forensics guy, works corporate data recovery gigs, knows his way around the legal gray zones. I didn't tell him everything, just that I needed some help recovering deleted files off a laptop. He said it would take a day, 2 max. In the meantime, I went digging. In her closet, behind old shoes, I found a box. Inside, prepaid cards, a burner phone, and receipts for a hotel on the edge of town. The same one from the video. There was even a parking stub, timestamped 2 days after our wedding. The night she told me she was too tired to think straight. I snapped photos of everything, labeled them, stored it all in a locked folder. Then I placed the box right back where I found it. Not a hair out of place. Because Claire had no idea I was building a fire under her. No clue that every time she smiled that smug little smile or called me sweetheart in that fake honeyed tone, she was pouring gasoline on her own grave. That night, I stared at her while she scrolled through her phone in bed. Her bed, with the door locked, of course. I could see the glow of the screen under the gap. The same fingers that signed our marriage license were now dancing across a keyboard, probably typing things like, "He still doesn't know." And that's when something hit me, something ugly and undeniable. She was enjoying this. Not just the affair, not just the secrecy, the humiliation. It wasn't about love. It wasn't even about Mason. It was about control, power. She liked watching me walk around the apartment like a pet she'd trained not to speak unless spoken to. She liked making me feel unwanted, undesired, useless. I clenched my fists in the dark and counted to 10. Because the moment I confronted her, it would all be over. And I didn't want it over. Not yet. I wanted her to sweat, to wonder, to doubt. So I waited until she was asleep. Then I quietly took her phone from the charger. Not to read texts this time. To forward them. To a second account. My account. And as I scrolled, I found him. Mason R. Dozens of messages. Some innocent, some disgusting. But one in particular stopped me cold. It was dated 2 days before our wedding. She had texted him, "I'll marry him, but just to settle things. Give me 30 days. Then I'm yours." That was the moment I stopped being heartbroken and started planning my war. She had married me as a placeholder, a bridge between 2 islands, hers and his, a body double to occupy her days while her nights belonged to someone else. Every smile she gave at the wedding, every thank you, every dance, it had all been a performance. And not for me, for him. I couldn't stop staring at that message. "I'll marry him, but just to settle things. Give me 30 days. Then I'm yours." Settle what things? What the hell did that mean? I leaned back in my chair, laptop open, her messages now neatly archived and copied, safely backed up in more than one place. I'd even printed some of the more poetic ones, her declarations of lust, her whining about what a little boy I was, how she couldn't even pretend to be into it anymore. The contrast between the woman I loved and the creature speaking in those chats was so sharp, I felt like I had stepped into a psychological horror film. I didn't recognize the voice on the screen. But then again, maybe I never really knew who Claire was. Nate called me later that day. His voice was tight and low. "Dan, you sure you want this? Just send it." He did. Within minutes, my inbox filled with recovered data, deleted images, fragments of chats, cached attachments. Photos I'd never seen before. Claire in front of mirrors, lying in hotel beds, sitting in parked cars late at night, always with her hair perfect, always with her eyes glowing like she was exactly where she wanted to be. Some pictures were selfies, some were taken by someone else. Mason, the smug bastard, had even sent her a meme with a wedding cake that said, "Enjoy the free apartment, babe." She responded, "LMAO. Can't wait to show him the exit door." I'll admit it, I cried. Not the dramatic, cinematic kind. No slow piano music in the background. I just sat there in silence, and the tears rolled. Quiet, heavy, hot with shame. She was planning my removal before I even finished writing my vows. I pulled up our wedding video. The part where we kissed. Her lips were tight, her body stiff. I had thought it was nerves. But now I saw it clearly, disgust. Or worse, disinterest. The way you tolerate a customer at work. The way you'd kiss a frog if someone paid you $1 million. The next morning, I watched her make herself a smoothie. Same exact routine. Banana, protein powder, almond milk, 2 scoops of collagen, because aging is a choice, as she liked to say. She barely looked at me as I stood there in the doorway, mug in hand. "You okay?" she asked, not out of concern, but routine. Muscle memory. I smiled. "Yeah, actually better than ever." She raised a brow. "You sure? You've been quiet lately." "Just processing how lucky I am." She narrowed her eyes slightly, trying to read between the lines. I let her. Later that evening, I left the apartment before she got home and drove across town to a bar I hadn't visited in years. I wasn't there to drink. I was meeting someone. His name was Jared, a lawyer, my father's old contact, the kind of guy who smelled like courtrooms and confidentiality. We sat in a booth by the window. I laid it out for him. Every detail, every file. I didn't ask for a divorce. I asked for an annulment. His eyes widened a bit. "That's rare. Usually messy. She married me under false pretenses. There was no intent to build a marriage. I've got evidence. Messages, photos, video surveillance." Jared sipped his drink and nodded. "You're not wrong. Judges don't always like it. But this is solid. Can I request to read the messages in court? You want her to hear them out loud?" I looked him dead in the eye. "Word for word." He smiled just barely. "I'll see what I can do." Driving home that night, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Control. Not revenge yet. That would come later. But I was no longer drowning in betrayal. I had found the edge of the pool, and I was climbing out. Wet, angry, humiliated, but standing. Claire was already home when I walked in. On the phone, whispering. She jumped when she saw me and quickly ended the call. "Who was that?" I asked. She blinked. "Just Olivia. Always Olivia. The most overworked, underpaid, invisible best friend in history." I walked past her without a word and closed the bedroom door behind me. For the first time since our wedding night, I locked her out. She stood on the other side of the door for a moment. Then she knocked. "Daniel." I didn't respond. She knocked again, harder. "What the hell are you doing?" "My body," I said, just loud enough for her to hear. "My rules." Silence. Then footsteps. Then nothing. And in that silence, I smiled. Let her wonder. Let her panic. Because now, the countdown wasn't hers anymore. It was mine. Claire didn't sleep at home that night. She didn't text me. Didn't call. I woke up to an empty kitchen and the faint scent of her shampoo still lingering in the hallway like the ghost of someone who had already moved on. I poured myself a coffee, sat in silence, and listened to the nothingness that follows a woman's silence when she knows the game's changed, and the board is no longer hers. At noon, she finally walked in, dressed in a different outfit. No apology. No explanation. Just sunglasses on indoors. "Rough night?" I asked calmly, without looking up from my laptop. She hesitated, surprised I even spoke. "Didn't know I needed your permission to have a life." "You don't." "Just surprised you still want to live here while you're out building one with someone else." Her breath caught quiet, like a skipped beat in a song. Then she smirked. "Still digging through my personal stuff?" "No," I said, closing the laptop slowly. "Just learning how to read lies in real time." She stood still for a long moment, maybe deciding whether to explode or play it cool. She chose the latter. She always did, until she didn't. And when that mask finally broke, I wanted to be there. Front row, popcorn in hand. "I'm not having this conversation," she snapped. "You will, but not with me. Not yet." She blinked. "What does that mean?" I didn't answer. She didn't like that. Later that evening, I drove to Nate's place. I wanted to go over the files again, every backup, every log, every trace of what she'd scrubbed from her laptop, phone, and cloud. He had something new for me. "There's a gap," he said, pointing at a timeline. A full week of missing messages. She didn't just delete them. She wiped them. I leaned in. "Which week?" He clicked. Zoomed. The week before our wedding. The week she went upstate for a bachelorette detox weekend. The same weekend I had picked out her wedding dress from the final 3 she pretended to care about. Nate handed me a file folder with recovered fragments. Half sentences. File names. Ghosts. But one stuck out, a video thumbnail. Corrupted. No sound. It was her. In a hotel room. With Mason. Shirtless. Sitting on the edge of the bed while she walked toward him wearing the exact white silk robe I had bought her as a pre-wedding gift. I had never even seen her wear it. I stared at the freeze frame. My stomach churned. She had spent the weekend celebrating her betrayal. I drove home with the kind of calm that makes you worry about yourself. Not a word out loud. No music. Just the steady hum of tires and the burning in my throat. I didn't want to scream. I didn't want to cry. I wanted precision. When I stepped through the front door, Claire was in the living room on the couch, scrolling her phone, pretending nothing mattered. She looked up. Her eyes met mine. Maybe she saw it, the difference. The way my silence wasn't quiet anymore. It was final. Court date's in 2 weeks, I said, hanging my coat. You'll get a notice. I'm filing for annulment. She dropped her phone. Literally. It hit the floor with a dull thud. What? She said, standing. You heard me. Her face turned into a mask of confusion, fear, and calculation. You're serious? I've got everything, Claire. The texts. The pictures. The footage. The timestamps. Hell, I've even got the parking stub from your little honeymoon with Mason. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. So I kept going. The judge is going to hear every message. Every promise you made to him while wearing my ring. Out loud. In court. While you sit there under oath. Daniel, please, she finally said. Let's talk about this. Now she wanted to talk. No, I said, voice flat. You made a deal. 30 days. No touching. Your body, your rules, right? You gave your soul to someone else before you ever gave me a chance. She stepped forward, hand raised. Let's just pause, okay? Think this through. We don't have to make this ugly. You already did. She blinked, lips trembling for the first time. You're going to humiliate me like this? Ruin me over a few messages? No, I said, walking past her. You ruined you. I'm just making sure it's not quiet. I shut the door behind me and leaned on the other side. Heart pounding. Breath shallow. From the hallway, I heard her collapse onto the couch. And then, for the first time since our wedding, she cried. Not for love. For loss of control. And I stood there. Silent. Letting her drown in it. The days that followed were a chess match played in whispers and stares. Claire moved like a ghost through the apartment. Present in body, but stripped of that sickening confidence she used to weaponize against me. No more smug grins. No more robe-clad parades in front of the mirror. Her eyes stayed wide, restless, like someone waiting for a bomb to go off. I had become a stranger in her life. But more terrifyingly, for her, I was a stranger with evidence. With intent. She didn't know what I'd already shown the lawyer. She didn't know what the court would hear. And that uncertainty was eating her alive. She began testing the water. One morning, she made me breakfast. Eggs, toast, fresh orange juice. She'd never cooked for me once during our entire marriage. Thought I'd try making us both a decent start to the day, she said, sliding the plate across the counter. I looked at her. Really looked. Her eyes were still puffy. She hadn't slept. Probably hadn't eaten. She was wearing a hoodie, my hoodie, and her hair was tied back like she didn't care how she looked. Thanks, I said, and pushed the plate aside. I'm not hungry. Her smile cracked. Only for a second, but enough. Later that day, I walked past the bedroom, our bedroom, and saw her sitting cross-legged on the bed, staring into space. Her phone was beside her, untouched. I half expected Mason's name to pop up, but nothing came. Because I knew something she didn't yet. I had messaged Mason. Not as myself. I used a clean number, created a new profile, used one of Claire's selfies I had recovered but edited with a filter. Nothing wild, just enough to make him believe she was reaching out. I baited the hook carefully. It's me. I need to talk. Can't do this anymore. His reply came fast. What are you talking about? Then, don't freak out now. You said you had this under control. And finally, he's not going to find out unless you're sloppy. Stay cold. Don't crack. Sloppy. Cold. Words you use to describe a con, not a marriage. I sent the screenshots to Jared, my lawyer. I made sure he saw the timeline, the connections, the pattern of deception, control, and psychological manipulation. This wasn't just infidelity. It was fraud. Claire thought she had played the perfect part. But she'd overestimated one thing: how long I'd stay silent. That evening, she cornered me in the hallway. Her voice had changed, less sharp, more calculated, like a woman suddenly realizing the floor under her had never been solid. "We need to talk," she said. "Privately." I folded my arms. "We're already private." She chewed her lip for a second. "I made a mistake, Daniel." That sentence alone made me laugh out loud. "Which one?" She flinched. "I was under a lot of pressure. I was confused." "No," I said. "You were precise. You were confident. You negotiated an arrangement. You set terms. You had timelines. This wasn't a slip, Claire. This was intentional." She hesitated, then dropped the last card she had. "I think we should go to couples counseling." I looked at her, and for the first time in weeks, I let the mask drop. Just for a second. I let her see what she'd created, not a man hurt, but a man sharpened. "I think," I said, stepping closer, "you should start drafting your apology. Because when that courtroom hears what you've done, the only counseling you'll be offered is how to handle being publicly exposed." Her mouth opened, closed. She backed away. That night, I heard her crying again, this time in the shower. Soft, desperate. But I didn't go to her. I didn't knock. I didn't care. Because behind all her tears and apologies, one thing remained the same. She was sorry she got caught, not sorry she did it. And there's a difference. A big one. The court summons was mailed the next morning. And now the clock was ticking on her. 3 days before the hearing, Claire's mask came all the way off. It didn't happen with a scream. Not even with tears. It happened with silence. A dangerous, intentional, suffocating silence. The kind you only hear from people who've been backed into a corner and are deciding whether to beg or bite. I came home from work to find the living room rearranged. Furniture shifted. Couch pulled forward. The wedding photo that had hung on the wall since June now missing. Gone. In its place, an empty nail and a faint outline where the frame used to be. She was standing by the window, her arms folded, staring out like she was watching for something. Or someone. "You moved the furniture?" I asked. She didn't turn around. I was thinking, that's dangerous. She laughed once, bitterly. "You've changed. I learned who I married." That landed. She turned then. In her face, it wasn't sad anymore. It wasn't fake nice, either. It was dead calm. Like something inside her had finally stopped pretending. "You think court's going to make you a hero?" she asked. "I don't care about being a hero," I replied. "I care about the truth." She took a step forward. "You care about revenge. You want to watch me drown." "You filled the pool," I said. "I'm just holding the mirror while you fall in." She smiled, really smiled. A wicked, knowing smile. And then, she said something I wasn't expecting. "I've been recording you too." I stared at her. "What?" She walked over to the bookshelf and pulled out a small black recorder I hadn't noticed before. Clicked play. Static. Then my voice. Muffled. Angry. "From 2 nights ago. You ruined you. I'm just making sure it's not quiet." Out of context, it sounded harsh. Cold. Like the words of a man out for blood. "I'll bring this in," she said calmly. "Play it in court. Show them who you really are. The husband with a temper. The one who threatens." I tilted my head, watching her. Watching this final move she was trying to make like it meant something. "You know what the court won't hear?" I said. She raised a brow. "They won't hear the rest of that night. The part where you cried. Where you begged. The part where I didn't touch you. Didn't yell. Didn't lay a hand on you despite every disgusting thing you did to me." Silence. I stepped forward, slow and steady. "You've been playing this role so long, you don't even know when the curtain's fallen. This isn't a drama, Claire. This is real. You're not the misunderstood anti-heroine. You're just a liar who got caught." She turned away, but not before I saw it. The fear. The pure fear of someone who knows they're not in control anymore. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch and went through every last message, folder, voice memo, and recording one more time. Organized. Time-stamped. I even printed a chronology. A judge wouldn't need to guess. They'd be able to see it. The lie wasn't messy, it was structured. Methodical. Planned. Claire had crafted her betrayal like a business deal. 30 nights. No touching. Dehumanize. Dismantle. Move on. What she didn't expect was that her fallback plan had teeth. The next morning, I woke up to find her dressed in a navy pantsuit. Hair done. Makeup sharp. Court ready. I raised a brow. We still have 2 days. I know, she said, voice flat. Just practicing. It was the first time I noticed she looked nervous. The perfect sheen she wore was cracking. And behind that crack? Panic. The realization that this wouldn't stay private. That a judge, strangers, maybe even her family would hear what she had done. Not in whispers. Not behind screens. But aloud. On record. And even more than losing me or our marriage, Claire feared humiliation. That was her God. And I was about to tear down her church. As I poured coffee, she spoke again. Quiet. Cautious. What do you want from me, Daniel? I looked at her and said the one thing I knew she couldn't fake. Regret. She didn't answer. Because she couldn't. And that silence? That was the first honest thing she'd given me since the day we met. The morning of the hearing, I woke up before the sun. The apartment was so still I could hear the radiator ticking in the hallway. Claire was already up, pacing in the kitchen like a caged animal. She wore the same navy pantsuit. This time it wasn't a rehearsal. This was the stage she never planned to be on, the one without a script. She had done her makeup perfectly, not a flaw in sight. But her hands betrayed her. She kept rubbing them, over and over, like she was trying to scrub something off her skin. Guilt, maybe. Or nerves. Or the memory of every word she thought would never leave her phone screen. She didn't speak as I passed her. Just watched me like I might lunge. Like the mask she used to wear was gone, and now, for the first time, I was the one she didn't know how to predict. Jared met me outside the courthouse. Gray suit, black briefcase, eyes sharper than a surgeon's blade. He handed me a folder as we walked in, highlighted timestamps, printed chats, screenshots of the hotel reservations, the burner number, everything. You ready for this? He asked. I nodded. Claire walked in 10 minutes later, flanked by her attorney, a stiff, pinched woman who looked like she hadn't smiled since the Bush administration. Claire didn't look at me. Not once. Not even when we sat just 12 feet apart in that silent courtroom, the coldest space on earth. Her eyes were locked forward, pretending this was business. A negotiation. A misunderstanding. The judge, a stern woman in her 50s with a hawk's posture, opened the session. Mr. and Mrs. Avery, we are here today to determine the validity of your marriage and your petition for annulment. Mr. Avery, your side has submitted extensive documentation alleging fraud and emotional misconduct as the basis. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, Jared replied, standing. The judge nodded. Then proceed. And that's when it began. Jared started methodically. Quiet. Professional. No drama. He walked the court through the timeline. Our wedding date. The immediate withholding of affection. The discovery of the laptop messages. And the financial evidence showing Claire used my accounts to pay for her rendezvous with another man. Claire's lawyer objected, said the texts were private, taken without consent. The judge didn't even flinch. He lived with her. It was his home, his shared Wi-Fi. You don't get privacy when you're orchestrating betrayal in your husband's living room. Then Jared opened the second folder, and the bomb dropped. He read them out loud, word for word. I'll marry him, but just to settle things. Give me 30 days. Then I'm yours. He's still clueless. I swear, he thinks I'm just stressed from the wedding. His voice makes me want to vomit. Each word echoed like a hammer in that courtroom. Claire didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't even blink. But her knuckles turned white on the table. Her lawyer whispered something to her, but she didn't react. Because in that moment, she realized what was happening. She wasn't defending her actions. She was being dissected by them. And it wasn't over. Jared then played the hallway video. The one where she told Mason, 12 more nights. The judge paused it, leaned forward. That was 2 days after the wedding? Yes, Your Honor. She shook her head. Disgraceful. Claire's attorney tried to pivot. Said Claire was under emotional strain. That the texts were jokes. That the marriage had communication issues. But it was weak. Transparent. And then the judge turned to me. Mr. Avery, what outcome are you seeking? I took a breath. Looked directly at Claire. She was staring at the floor now. The color gone from her face. I want the marriage annulled. I want the records to show it was built on lies. And I want no spousal settlement. She entered this with another man in her heart. I entered it alone. The judge nodded, then turned to Claire. Mrs. Avery, do you dispute his statement? Claire's lips parted, but no sound came out. She blinked, swallowed, looked at her lawyer like a child who suddenly realized no one was coming to save her. The judge waited, then said quietly, very well. She reached for her pen. The court grants the annulment on the grounds of fraudulent intent and emotional manipulation. Mrs. Avery will receive no financial compensation. Records will reflect that this union was not valid under the standards of good faith marriage. Bang! The gavel fell, and Claire's world shattered in silence. She sat there frozen, like if she moved, it would become real. Her lawyer whispered again. This time, Claire stood, but her legs shook. She looked at me one final time. Not with hate, not even with sadness, with shock, as if she still hadn't believed I would do it. But I had. And now, she had nothing. No husband, no money, no narrative, just herself, and the world finally seeing her for what she really was. We exited the courtroom into a crisp silence. No cheers, no camera flashes, no dramatic music swelling as justice was served. Just the sharp click of Claire's heels fading behind me as she rushed down the marble hallway like she could still outrun the truth. Jared clapped a hand on my shoulder. That, he said, was surgical. I nodded. My hands were shaking, but not from fear anymore. From release. Like every nerve in my body had been strung tight for weeks, and now, finally, someone had cut the wire. Claire didn't wait. She disappeared into the parking lot before I even reached the door. Gone. Like smoke. But it wasn't over. Because what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that Mason had reached out to me. 3 hours before the hearing, an unknown number had called. I let it go to voicemail. Then I got a text. We need to talk. Mason, it's about Claire. I didn't respond at first. I didn't trust it. But curiosity isn't a thing you silence easily when you've been lied to for a month straight. So after the court ruling, after the paperwork, after the relief, I called him back. He answered immediately. Daniel, he asked. His voice was nervous. Rushed. Yeah, I didn't know, he said. Man, I swear to God, I didn't know you were married. I leaned back in my car seat, staring at the courthouse through the windshield. You didn't know? Not until after. After the first week. She said you were just a roommate. Some guy helping her with rent until she got into med school. She said you were obsessed with her. I closed my eyes. And you believe that? I asked. He sighed. At first, yeah. She showed me photos, just ones where you were in the background. Said you wouldn't leave her alone. Said she was stuck. Stuck. Then when she told me she got married, I lost it. Said she had to choose. That's when she made that 30-day promise. Said it was just a legal thing. For housing. Said she'd get you out of the picture. I let that sit. Let the weight of it crawl up my spine. She's dangerous, man, he added. Manipulative as hell. When I tried to back out, she threatened to tell her family I'd forced her into something. I panicked. I blocked her. Changed numbers. She's been messaging me on fake accounts since. I rubbed my temples. Why are you telling me this now? Because I saw her story yesterday. On Instagram. She posted some vague thing about being betrayed. Losing everything. And I knew she was about to spin it. Make you look like the villain. She already tried. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I saved everything. Screenshots. Voice notes. Even that 30-day deal. If you want them, they're yours. I breathed in slowly. Send them. He did. Over 50 screenshots. Recordings of Claire talking about our wedding like it was a stage play. Complaining about my needy energy. Calling me her exit strategy. Even one where she laughed about how I cried when she hugged me the night I proposed. I listened to that one 3 times. Not out of pain, but because I wanted it burned into my memory. This was who I married. A woman who built intimacy like scaffolding, just long enough to climb over someone else. I didn't respond to Mason. Didn't thank him. Didn't curse him out. He was just another part of the wreckage. A fool, like me. Caught in her theater. When I got back to the apartment, her stuff was gone. Every shelf that once held her books was empty. Her vanity was bare. The robe she never wore for me? Gone. But not the note. Folded neatly on the kitchen counter. Written in that delicate, looping handwriting she practiced in high school to look classy. Daniel. You've made your point. Loudly. Cruelly. Congratulations. You ruined me publicly. You humiliated me. And for what? Because I didn't love you the way you expected? I hope one day, when the dust settles, you realize you didn't win. You just burned it all down. Claire. I didn't keep the note. I didn't reread it. I tore it once, then again, until her voice had no more shape, no more weight. Because the only thing I realized that day was this. I didn't burn anything. She lit the match. I just made sure the world saw the flames. The silence after a war is the loudest thing in the world. For the first time in a month, I walked into my apartment, and it didn't feel like a trap. No perfume lingering in the air. No door half shut with whispers behind it. No eyes watching me like I was a pawn on someone else's board. Just air clean, cold, mine. But victory, if you can call it that, doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with echoes. With the sound of your own breath in an empty room. With memories crawling up your spine when you least expect them. Her voice in the walls. Her laughter in the floorboards. Her lies still dripping from the corners like water that won't dry. And then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. At first, I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. The fourth message made my hand freeze. You thought this was over? No name. No punctuation. Just those 5 words. I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, another one. You embarrassed the wrong person, Daniel. My heart didn't race. It slowed. Not because I was scared. Because I knew that tone. It was Claire. And she was unraveling. By the next morning, 3 burner accounts had followed me on Instagram. My work email got hit with spam from untraceable addresses. My sister texted me saying someone had created a fake profile of her with Claire's wedding photos, tagging me in captions like homewrecker families run in the blood. I forwarded everything to Jared. He advised a restraining order. Said Claire was slipping. That some people, when they lose control, don't seek closure, they seek craters. And Claire was a demolition artist with nothing left to build. But I didn't go to court again. I went to her. She was staying at her friend Ashley's, the one who never looked me in the eye during our engagement. The one who once joked at the rehearsal dinner that Claire was too hot to settle down. I knocked on the door just before sunset. Claire opened it herself. No makeup. Hoodie. Barefoot. Hair tied like she hadn't slept in days. She froze when she saw me. Stop messaging me, I said, calm but sharp. Her lips parted. I didn't. Don't lie. I traced the numbers. The fake accounts. The edits. The emails to my job. She swallowed hard. A restraining order takes 24 hours. But a police report for cyber harassment is instant. Daniel, please. Her voice cracked. You humiliated me. You made me look like a monster. I blinked at her. You are a monster. You just don't want people to know it. Tears welled up. Real ones, maybe. But tears don't rewind time. They don't erase intent. I gave you everything, she whispered. No, I said. You sold me everything. And then delivered nothing. Her jaw trembled. You think this makes you better than me? No, I said. It makes me done with you. I turned. She grabbed my arm. Wait. I stopped, but didn't face her. I didn't plan all of it, she said. It started as a game, but I wanted to love you. I tried. I couldn't. I pulled my arm free, slowly. You didn't fail to love me, Claire. You failed to respect me. Then I walked down those steps, one by one, and with each step, the weight lifted. That night, I sat on the balcony of my now empty apartment. Cold beer, blanket over my lap, watching the lights of the city blink like the world had kept turning the whole time. Like I had survived the fire. Because I had. And Claire? Claire would spend the rest of her life explaining why her wedding lasted 30 nights, why her roommate had legal representation, and why her name was attached to a court record labeled fraudulent marital intent. I didn't ruin her. She documented her own destruction. All I did was press print. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of peace I hadn't tasted since the day I said I do to a woman who'd already rehearsed her exit. No contact. No messages. No passive-aggressive posts or anonymous harassment. Just the dull ache of rebuilding alone, but clean. But endings don't come with warning labels. They come with knocks at the door. It was a Sunday. I was making breakfast, finally humming again without realizing it, when I heard the knock. Steady. Not frantic. Not timid. Just there. I opened it. Claire stood in the hallway. Jeans. Hoodie. No makeup. No performance. She looked like the ghost of someone who used to be dangerous. I'm not here to fight, she said before I could even speak. I'm not here to ask for anything. I didn't move. I just wanted you to know. Mason's gone. He ghosted me. Blocked everything. Told mutuals I used him. I stared at her. No sympathy, Rose. Just curiosity. And she looked down. And I deserved it. Silence. A first. She looked around like being in front of this door made her small. It's weird how fast people disappear when the lies run out. I nodded once. It is. She swallowed. I thought I was clever. Smarter than everyone. But I built a story where everyone had to be an idiot for it to work. And then I got shocked when nobody played along. You thought you could humiliate me, I said softly, and walk away clean. She looked me in the eyes then. I didn't think you'd fight back. There it was. The truth. Not apology. Not regret. Respect. Not for what I was, but for what I became when the mask dropped. I waited. Claire took a breath. If you ever tell this story, make sure people know I never loved him, either. Not really. I raised an eyebrow. Then who was he? She smiled sadly. The fantasy I made up to escape the man who actually showed up for me. I leaned against the doorframe. You think that makes it better? No, she said. But it makes it real. We stood in silence for a beat. Then she turned. As she walked away, I felt no anger. Just the cold truth wrapping itself around my bones. She hadn't come back to fix anything. She came to see if I still needed her. And for the first time, I didn't. Not a flicker. Not a tug in the chest. Not even a hollow echo. The door clicked shut behind me, and I returned to my kitchen. My coffee was still hot. My eggs still warm. The world hadn't ended. It had just started over. And this time, I was the one holding the pen. So if anyone asks, yes, I married a liar. Yes, she tried to break me. Yes, she weaponized love like a scam. But I exposed her in court, in truth, in daylight. And I didn't just walk away with the win. I walked away whole. While she walked away seen.